I know of a place where you'll never be harmed. A wonderful place full of... A magical place full of wonder and charm. Indoors. Okay, now we can start. Excuse me. I'm not trying to rip off anyone with the burps, but when burps burp. Maybe I'm gonna cut out the burp. Maybe I'll reverse it. Whatever. Hi, I'm Mike. I'm high. No, I'm Mike, aka mykeadelic. Welcome to the channel. If it's your first time, this is going to be a little movie review. I usually do more musical stuff. I got a band. We play shows. We got some shows on the channel. You could check them out. Some music videos. Music all over the internet. Links in the description. Editing Mike here. I just wanted to pop in and say there's obviously music stuff on the channel, but if you also want to check out some movie stuff, I just finished a review for White Lotus Season 2 that was uploaded recently, and a What I Watched in November video. So check them out. Without further ado, we're going to get into the review today. We are going to be talking about Emily the Criminal. Watched this movie a night or two ago with my pal Ike, and it was good. I really liked it, so I'm going to talk about it. I know it premiered at Sundance. I was not at Sundance. And it was in theaters probably, but I didn't see it in theaters. It was on Netflix, and I saw it on Netflix, and so now I'm gonna talk about it. Emily the Criminal is a 2022 film directed and written by John Patton Ford in his feature film debut. It stars Aubrey Plaza. Excuse the AC, I'm sorry if it's loud, but I don't want to sweat, so here we go. It stars Aubrey Plaza as Emily Bonetto and Theo Rossi as Yusuf, Emily's love interest, who introduces her to credit card theft. That's straight from Wikipedia. And the tagline description straight off the internet is, saddled with student debt and unable to find work, a college graduate becomes involved in a credit card scam, acting as a dummy shopper and buying increasingly risky products with stolen credit cards. The runtime is 93 minutes. It premiered at Sundance in January of this year, 2022, which is almost over. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about the making of the movie. I looked into it a little bit. I listened to a couple interviews. I did a little research on IMDb. The DP mostly did some music videos. Jeff Bierman. I'm going to burp. Whoa. The DP, Jeff Bierman, mostly did some music videos, a couple shorts, maybe a feature or two. I didn't do too much research. I just did a little, keyword little. Editor Harrison Atkins had a couple small features, shorts, and he also directed a couple things that I think he edited maybe as well. Maybe he wrote them too, I don't know. Again, little research. Music's by Nathan Halpern, who's Emmy nominated. Cool, good for him. A lot of kind of like people with some experience but kind of new but skilled. Cool to see someone like Aubrey Plaza collaborating with all these kind of newer to the industry people, so kind of passing the torch down. We love to see it. For those who don't know, quick sidebar, I also went to film school. That's why I'm talking about movies and I'm qualified. So yes, Emerson College, what's up? Represent. White Lotus, Jennifer Coolidge, alum. Recently finished that, also dope. Also is Aubrey Plaza. We'll get back to Emily the Criminal. I watched a couple interviews with the director. One had the director. All the interviews had Aubrey Plaza and Theo Rossi. One had the director and Aubrey Plaza and Theo Rossi. John Patton Ford being the director. It was cool. Got a lot of insight, kind of hearing them talking about the script and talking about the process. Apparently it was maybe like 3 years or something. The writer had written the script. Once Aubrey Plaza had kind of read it, she was super down. She was on as a producer. She wanted to get like a more experienced director because he hadn't directed anything before.
As a producer, my first thought was, well, who's going to direct this movie? We need to find someone really great. And then I met with John Patton Ford, the writer, and I was like, we should find someone like really amazing to direct this movie. And he was like, well, I'd like to direct it. And I was like, no. Because you haven't done it before. But then we kept talking, and then and then obviously it's ideal to have the director have the writer direct the movie because it's their story and everything, that John said. And to me, it was clear that we wanted to make the same film and we had the same priorities and vision, sensibilities and stuff like that.
But eventually, as they kind of got into it, they decided he was the best person for the job. And I would say this is so. And you can really tell from the interviews, there's like this kind of mutual understanding. Everybody kind of was on the same wave and really understood the script. And to use meme terms, understood the assignment. Oh yeah, and there's also a Twin Peaks reference in the interview, so you know they're cool.
Look, I'll be honest. I'm very suspicious of people, especially first-time directors. I always look at them like, I don't know. I don't know if you can handle this. But John just he lived this story. He understands this movie on a level that nobody does. And I think there's just something about everything that John said to me in those early meetings was spot on. It was clear to me we wanted to make the same exact film. We had the same priorities. And he reminded me of like Kyle MacLachlan in Twin Peaks, like just the confidence, almost like a robotic, chilling confidence that I couldn't get enough of. And I just trusted him from the beginning. I knew he had it. I knew he was going to do it and pull it off, and he did. So
I'm loving the Twin Peaks
that's something
reference,
to
too.
aspire to.
It was damn good coffee.
This was a project that was created by people who care. Every actor, every crew member, everybody seemed to really get along and share collective vision and artistic collaboration on this film. It was really awesome. This is what independent filmmaking is all about. Very inspiring and super entertaining. Kind of like a throwback to French New Wave filmmaking. Really early, low budget, just the essentials, and yet really telling a story, showing you these characters. And yeah, it's all about having these strong actors and this message, you know, something to say. If my arm is weird, it's because my computer's here and I'm like scrolling. And having lived in LA and worked in the gig economy and kind of in the shadow, in the valley, in the shadow of the industry, and being a film school graduate myself and having fellow graduates who maybe had an easier time getting certain positions. And not that I was super competitive trying to get these positions, but there was a lot of unpaid internships, which I experienced as part of my college, my final year of college. But there's a lot of that kind of, you get very little pay, minimum wage, or 14-hour days, or all these crazy things to the brink of exhaustion. You hear these stories about people who literally die driving home because they're exhausted, and it's not cool. So I didn't want to be in that kind of situation. So I generally stuck to more independent sets, smaller things for friends and music videos. Now I'm back in Florida. I've been working on my stuff, and it's cool to see someone like Aubrey Plaza, who clearly is doing well in her career, recognize the little guy in a way and go back to that place of that kind of struggling to make it and kind of trying to find yourself, sort of thing. Another sidebar, I feel like I'm just going on tangents, and I'm going to be staying up way too late, and I gotta work tomorrow, so I shouldn't be doing that. But the director mentioned in one of the interviews...
They always talked about it as a thriller, but to me, deep down, it's almost like a coming-of-age story about someone discovering what they like to do, what they're good at, and what they might continue doing.
And I thought that was really interesting because I love coming-of-age stories, partly because I literally took a class on coming-of-age as a concept, and it hadn't struck me when I was watching the film, but it was really interesting in hindsight and kind of in analysis because there's so many moments that if you're viewing this as a coming-of-age story and embracing the title, we're still spoiler-free right now, it really changes your perspective on the film. So I don't think that spoils anything, but it's just something to consider as you watch the film. And there's really cool themes to explore. I'm a big fan of David Lynch and stuff, and there's always that kind of like exploring the darker side, or maybe seeing the kind of yin-yang, the half and half, black and white cookie of things where there's the darkness and the light. But this really did a good job of focusing on the darkness, but also the light in the darkness, if that makes any sense. Okay, enough rambling. Let's get into it. So here are my notes that hopefully shouldn't be spoilery, but sometimes I get a little carried away. So here's my kind of review analysis. The pacing, the establishment of the world and characters is really solid and super quick. We learn what we need to know about Emily in scenes that are familiar enough to get the ideas across, but fast. Let me just hit you with a quick sidebar. I wrote this, I'm kind of reading it off a teleprompter, so I'm going to go between very loose and improvised and like probably overly wordy. So diving into what I wrote. Without further ado, We learn what we need to know about the character in scenes that are familiar enough to get the ideas across, but fast or unique enough to not feel like a cliche. I don't know if it's the writing, performance, edit, or a combination of all of the above. It's clearly a combination of all of the above. This movie does a great job of taking basic filmic ideas, like conveying exposition through a job interview, and executes it so cleanly that it allows the film to just fly on by. And it takes something like a job interview and I think it's the opening scene of the job interview. When you see another job interview later in the movie, it's kind of a parallel. I'll get into that in the spoiler section, but it takes cliches and makes them important. It takes things that are kind of throwaways. There's no throwaways. It's an hour and a half. Everything matters. And that's what I really like. Without spoiling anything, the stakes escalate very quickly. One of her coworkers asks her to cover, which shows not only her desperation for income, but also kindness to help a friend out. And she's rewarded with this contact, with this reference of a way to make money quickly. And that's where things start to get exciting, as we might say.
Hi,
I don't know who we are. The royal we.
the royal we.
Could throw a Lebowski clip in there. And she starts to go down this rabbit hole of crime, almost through the looking glass or down the rabbit hole. Whatever, Alice in Wonderland. Let's just put it this way. She's introduced to this life of crime, and things start to escalate very quickly. It's an hour and a half runtime, so literally and physically, things escalate very quickly. I really enjoyed this movie. I thought it was like a new French New Wave movie. I just watched Breathless again recently, so I'm kind of like in that wave. But there's something to a film that has an element of action, or like something like Casablanca. It's like you can pitch it like this movie has everything. It's got action, it's got romance, it's got crime, it's got, like everything you want, guns, whatever. It's really fun. I like how quick the pacing is. I like how believable it was, how it felt real. I generally feel like I like some sort of supernatural element, or in this case, the crime was almost like, not that it's supernatural, but it's almost like you have to suspend your disbelief a little bit and go, okay, but people really do this. So, crimes happen. People commit them. And it was an interesting exploration into the why and how and who. Okay, enough of that. Party time. We're getting into the spoiler section.
For real, if you haven't seen this movie, I highly recommend you click off, come back, and wait until you've seen the whole thing to really find out what happens, because this movie is incredibly thrilling when you don't know what's going to happen. So seriously, please wait, watch it, and then listen to the spoilers. See ya in a couple hours.
First thing, oh my god, when the car situation, that just got crazy, and I was like, my blood hasn't been pumping like that in a film since probably like Uncut Gems or something, just as far as like anxiety inducing, but in a good way. Uncut Gems was kind of relentless. This was relentless, but in like in my opinion, really entertaining way. Except, not that it wasn't entertaining as a whole. I suppose it was effective filmically, but that robbery scene was holy beans, disturbing, visceral, and the craziest thing, and the way it was kind of mirrored later, that's what really, it's like the cycle of abuse thing. And just like, writing it up. And of course, she saves the doggy, so we gotta love that, because I was like, I swear if this dog dies, this movie might suck. I can overlook it sometimes, but we all know how that divides an audience. And yeah, so what, I like dogs and cats. I got a problem? Let's have a civil conversation about it. Doggy doggy, wah wah wah, wah wah wah. Yes, it was cathartic. I didn't say that word out to the intense break-in kind of robbery. It was so cathartic to see Emily fight back and kind of like reclaim her power as a bad bitch girl boss, and tase those home invaders and get that doggy back. Like good criminal she is. But that being said, this is a movie about consequences and commitment. Commitment to a life of crime as a reaction to the lack of ability to be free from the social stigma of having a criminal record. Society tells us to go to school and to get a job, but one mistake can lead to a life of difficulties, and the systemic lack of forgiveness encourages criminal activity more than it encourages forgiveness. Bars. And the interview scene with Gina Gershon is just absolutely insane. She just totally calls out the absurdity of the reality of the situation. It's absolutely disturbing how many industries are run on the backs of people who can afford to work for free in order to try to prove themselves, or in the case of kind of Hollywood stuff, in the entertainment industry, you can afford to work for free, or sometimes are working 14-hour days for minimum wage, and it's almost like a hazing ritual. And it's like, don't you love movies? It's like this weird culty brainwashy thing where like the relationship between a pimp and their subordinate. I love movies, but not if movies are going to abuse me and overwork me and underpay me. I am passionate about movies, and I will prove my love of movies by watching them, talking about them, and making them. The idea of having to prove yourself by working for free, working for experience, and after 6 months or whatever, being able to get the job, it's disturbing, and it really decodes to a kind of classism of this sort of gatekeeping of people. Only people who are above a certain income level, or maybe who have parents who work certain jobs, who can afford to allow them to live a certain lifestyle, which enables them to not have to work tomorrow in the morning in 9 hours. It kind of like weeds out anybody who can't afford to work for free or can't afford to exhaust themselves. And the people who are well connected, or the people who are obscenely wealthy, are provided this sort of privilege and these benefits that most people often do not get to experience. And personally, being an artiste and someone from Boca Raton, which is a notoriously wealthy place that I grew up in. Now I live in a little bit less of a fancy neighborhood in this here studio. But the point of the matter is, I very much so came from a place of privilege, and I went to an expensive college, and even still, I still have to work. I still cannot afford to just be a unpaid intern, or to be a sort of helping hand and not have a full-time consistent thing. So in our modern day, we do as Emily does and not commit crimes, but we make our own way. Tangent over. I gotta cut the crap out of that. Yeah, so that's something I really appreciated, is that it kind of encourages, in its own backwards way, going your own way and going against the grain, and not having to be a kind of wage slave, capitalist sheep. All right, let's go with it. Moving on. Yippity-dee-dee-dee-dee. Dippity-dippity. Oh yeah, but basically, yeah, the interview is a great mirror too to the earlier interview where Emily is kind of like feels betrayed and da-da-da. Instead, she kind of like almost expects this and accepts this and uses this to turn over a new leaf and become another person. Master Disguise reference. But yeah, become Emily the criminal, which of course was alluded to in that amazing scene, which personally I really liked, where they almost name dropped the film, but they didn't quite do it, where she's like, could be Emily the artist, Emily the designer, whatever, Emily the this, Emily the whatever, and she doesn't say Emily the criminal, but we're like all like thinking, oh, it's Emily the criminal, yeah. Awesome. Finally, I'll talk about the third act. It escalates chaotically, and in fact, this is what I was thinking the same thing. I recently watched Barbarian. was like, the third act's crazy. It's so many twists and turns. Wait a minute, the whole thing's crazy. So many twists and turns. The third act escalates chaotically, but the whole thing escalates with an increasing level of chaos and intensity. The whole film has an almost fuse-like pacing, building and building to this explosion that leaves us standing in the smoke and rubble, trying to see if our precariously beloved Emily will make it out alive of this Coen-esque escalation of misunderstandings. Did I say that right? Hopefully. The break-in scene was a great climax. It shows their kind of like smarts, and then also just when you kind of think they're really on top of their game, things go kind of sideways, and you see how they're playing each other, and Yusuf's business partner is like got one leg up the whole time. But of course, our girl boss, bad bitch Emily, turns the tables and goes all home invader on him, and it's disturbing, but it's an important scene to kind of show how far this character is willing to go, and to define her character as someone who is, you know, crossing these lines, these criminal lines. I'm gonna wrap this up. I gotta go to freaking sleep. So basically, the break-in, the reversal, amazing. Yusuf, R.I.P., tragic. Thought he died instantly, and then I was like, oh, he's gonna make it, and then it was like, ooh. It leaves an impact that I think gives Emily a sense of consequence that hadn't been so personal before, and it kind of shows her to the what happens when you go too far, maybe kind of thing too. So, but who knows? Maybe she hasn't learned from her mistakes, because we see her in, I wrote South America, but I think it's Mexico. You know, she's living her life, doing what Yusuf was doing, kind of as a ringleader. Sure, she's got herself a nice embosser, and yeah, on goes the kind of monkey's paw of credit card fraud. On to the next Emily, or Emilio, perhaps. Okay, bad joke, terrible. So yeah, we've seen Emily become Emily the criminal. Nice, quick pacing, strong characters, and I think I've been out of focus this whole time, so I really apologize for that, but I'm doing the best I can, folks. So, oh yeah, I think the thing that's like the bittersweetness of this happy ending, obviously, is the crime element, but also there's an aspect that it's kind of an addictiveness thing, that maybe Emily's kind of become addicted to this kind of crime, like how people become addicted to gambling or something, like that thrill of life or death situations or being caught. It's almost like an interesting subversion or metaphor or parallel to kind of like the typical Hollywood story, where maybe you would have someone becoming an actor or an actress, but nonetheless overcoming fears and taking risks and becoming someone they weren't when you saw them in the beginning of the film. You know, I love, I've said I love David Lynch, and Mulholland Drive is kind of like that anti-LA, or like this subversion of the kind of like maybe not subversion, it's kind of like the tragic Hollywood actress kind of situation, and so it was like, obviously she wasn't an actress, but it had an interesting spin on the classic LA tale. Okay. So yeah, I know this came out a while ago, but it's on Netflix now, so yeah, I really enjoyed it, so I recommend you go check it out if you haven't already. Yeah. I also recently finished season 2 of White Lotus, which was rippin', and Aubrey Plaza is in that as well. I'll be talking about that probably soon. It's not probably, it's already out. Go check it out after this. Okay, I'll catch you next time. Thanks for tuning in. In case you're wondering why I've been wearing a hat this whole time, it's because I cut my hair, and it's not that it looks bad, it's just that I feel uncomfortable. Too short. It's just that I feel too short. So we give it a little time. But yeah, thanks for tuning in. I've been Mike, aka mykeadelic, and that's my thoughts on Emily the Criminal. Check it out. Oh yeah, I almost forgot to say, I also got other videos on here. So yeah, if you want to hear me talk about movies or TV shows or whatever, more of that to come. If you want to listen to some tunes, we got some of that. We got live music, we got music videos, and plenty more to come here on the mykeadelic channel, so stay tuned.
If you like the video, give it a like. If you want to subscribe, subscribe. If you saw the movie, you want to see the movie, leave a comment. Let me know what you think. Love to start a conversation.
Catch you next time. Peace out.
Well, first of all, I read Rosie O'Donnell's autobiography in 7th grade. Rosie.
I know. I'm really good at macing people, tasing people, and macing people.
You're also good with a box cutter, just saying.
Gail. Don't
I'm not going to
spoil
mess with you.
anything.
Okay.
No. And I was like, Rosie didn't say that.
I'm not.
Really,
I'm not.
Gail?
I'm not.